There was a night 3 years ago when I woke up at exactly 3:17 in the morning, and I remember the feeling so vividly it still sends chills down my spine. My eyes opened without any reason, no noise, no dream, just this sudden sharp awareness cutting through the darkness like a blade. The room felt different, charged with something I couldn't name, and my heart was racing even though I hadn't been having a nightmare. I lay there in the silence, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was being watched. Not by something in the room, but by something looking at me from a place I couldn't see. A place beyond the walls and the ceiling and the very fabric of what I thought was reality. It wasn't fear exactly, it was recognition, like my soul knew something my mind had forgotten. And in that moment of strange clarity at 3 in the morning, I understood that I had been waking up at this exact time for months, maybe years, and I had never questioned why. That night changed everything because I started searching. And what I discovered in the ancient Gnostic texts, in the suppressed Gospels that the early church fathers buried and condemned, in the whispered teachings of the mystics who were burned at the stake for knowing too much, was so disturbing and so liberating that I knew I could never go back to sleep in the same way again. What I found was the truth about the Archon scan, a spiritual surveillance that happens at 3 in the morning, a systematic invasion of your consciousness by forces that the Gnostic masters warned about 2,000 years ago, forces that Jesus himself revealed to his closest disciples in teachings that were deliberately hidden from humanity, because this knowledge sets you free, and there are powers in this world and beyond it that do not want you free. If you have ever woken up at 3 a.m. and felt that unexplainable unease, that sense of exposure, that feeling of being observed by invisible eyes, then you already know in your soul what I am about to reveal to you, and by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what is scanning you, why it happens at 3 in the morning, and most importantly, how to break free from this cosmic surveillance system that keeps your divine spark imprisoned in ignorance. Before I reveal this suppressed Gnostic knowledge that the church councils banned and the Orthodox authorities condemned as heresy, if you are a sincere seeker of hidden truth and you want to continue this journey of awakening with me, subscribe to this channel right now and activate the bell notification, because what comes next will expose secrets that have been concealed for millennia, and you will not want to miss the next teachings I will share with you as a friend and guide on this path. In the next 15 minutes, I am going to reveal to you exactly what the Archon scan is, why it targets you specifically at 3 in the morning when your defenses are at their weakest, what these archontic forces are actually looking for when they probe your consciousness, and how Jesus taught his inner circle to recognize and resist this spiritual invasion using techniques that were preserved in the Gospel of Thomas, the Pistis Sophia, and other Gnostic scriptures that survived only because brave souls buried them in clay jars in the Egyptian desert at Nag Hammadi to protect them from destruction. This is not speculation, this is ancient gnosis, direct knowledge that cost people their lives to preserve, and it has the power to completely transform your understanding of why you feel the way you feel at 3 in the morning. Let me take you back to the 4th century, to the deserts of Egypt where the Gnostic Christians were being hunted down and exterminated by the newly empowered Orthodox Church. These Gnostics knew something that terrified the institutional authorities. They knew that this material world is not the creation of the true God, the infinite source of light and consciousness that exists beyond all form. According to the Gnostic revelation preserved in texts like the Secret Book of John, this world was created by a false god, a blind, arrogant demiurge who thinks he is the only god, and serving him are the Archons, spiritual parasites and cosmic jailers, whose sole purpose is to keep humanity asleep, ignorant of our true divine nature, feeding on our spiritual energy and ensuring we never wake up to who we really are. The Gnostics taught that we are not sinners who need salvation. We are divine sparks, fragments of the true light, temporarily imprisoned in bodies and trapped in a simulated reality designed to keep us from remembering our origin in the pleroma, the fullness of divine perfection beyond this flawed material cosmos. And the Archons have a system, a method of control, and one of their primary tools is what the ancient texts refer to as the scan, the systematic monitoring of human consciousness to identify those who are beginning to wake up, those whose divine spark is starting to remember, those who pose a threat to the archontic system of control because they are seeking gnosis. Now you might be asking yourself, why 3 in the morning specifically? 3 a.m., or more precisely the hours between 3 and 4 in the morning, represents what occult traditions call the witching hour, but the Gnostics understood it more accurately. This is the time when the veil between dimensions is thinnest, when your conscious mind is at its weakest because you are suspended between sleeping and waking, when your ego defenses are down and your spiritual body is most exposed. The Archons, being parasitic entities that exist in the lower astral dimensions, they use this window of time to scan human consciousness, searching for those individuals whose light is growing brighter, whose questions are becoming more dangerous, whose intuition is leading them toward forbidden knowledge. When you wake up at 3 a.m. with that feeling of being watched, with that inexplicable anxiety, You are not imagining it. You are experiencing the Archon scan, a targeted spiritual surveillance that intensifies as you get closer to awakening. Before we go deeper, I want to ask you something that very few people have the courage to answer with complete honesty. Have you ever felt like you do not truly belong in this world? Like there is something fundamentally wrong with the reality that everyone else accepts as normal? As if your soul remembers something your mind has forgotten? That feeling of being a stranger in a strange land? Of seeking answers that no one around you even seems to question? That feeling is the first whisper of Gnosis awakening inside you, the divine spark beginning to rebel against its imprisonment. If right now you recognize that you have always felt this deep spiritual restlessness, this hunger for hidden truths, I want you to do something powerful. Write in the comments right now the phrase, "I awaken from the sleep of ignorance." When you decree that you are waking up, that you no longer accept the imposed illusions, something fundamental shifts in your consciousness. And beyond that, when you comment, you are helping bring this Gnostic knowledge to other sincere seekers who are wandering lost, searching for the same truths you are. Right now, I awaken from the sleep of ignorance. So what exactly are the Archons scanning for when they probe your consciousness at 3 in the morning? The ancient Gnostic text called the Pistis Sophia describes how the Archons have placed seals and bonds on human souls to prevent us from ascending back to the pleroma when we die, to trap us in the cycle of reincarnation within this prison world. But these bonds can only hold if you remain ignorant, if you do not know they exist, if you never question the nature of reality. The Archon scan at 3 a.m. is their early warning system, their way of identifying which souls are starting to question, which sparks are beginning to glow brighter. They are scanning for specific signatures, elevated vibration that comes from spiritual practice, unusual thought patterns that indicate independent questioning of authority, emotional frequency that suggests you are no longer fully bought into the fear and separation that keeps most humans controlled. And most dangerous of all, they are scanning for knowledge, for signs that you have accessed forbidden teachings, that you have found the Gnostic texts, that you have begun to understand the true nature of this realm. When you wake up at 3 a.m. and feel that presence, that pressure, that sense of being examined by something vast and cold, you are being scanned, assessed by the Archontic system, and if they determine that you are a threat, they will intensify their attacks. You will experience unexplained anxiety and depression designed to lower your frequency, sudden obstacles in your external life meant to distract you from inner work, spiritual interference during meditation to discourage you from continuing, and they will send people into your life to mock your seeking, to ridicule your questions, to convince you that you are crazy for thinking there is something more beyond the veil of consensus reality. This is pattern recognition. This is Gnosis, and once you see the pattern, you can never unsee it, and that is the beginning of your freedom. The Gospel of Thomas contains a saying of Jesus that the Orthodox Church tried to erase completely from history. Jesus said, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. And if you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." What is within you is the divine spark. And if you awaken it, if you let it shine with its full radiance, the Archon's power over you ends immediately. The Archon scan at 3 a.m. is their attempt to make sure you never bring forth what is within you. But they can only scan you if you are unconscious, if you are passive, if you do not know what is happening and do not resist. The moment you become aware of the Archon scan, you gain the power to block it, to shield yourself, to turn their weapon against them. Jesus taught his inner circle a specific technique for protecting consciousness from Archontic intrusion, preserved in fragments across multiple Gnostic texts. The technique has 3 components. The first is recognition, which means the next time you wake up at 3 in the morning, you immediately recognize what is happening. You say internally or out loud, "I recognize the Archon scan. I see you, I know what you are, and I do not consent to this invasion of my consciousness." Because consent is everything in the spiritual realm. The Archons can only maintain power over you if you unconsciously consent to their authority, and the moment you withdraw consent, their power begins to crumble. The second component is invocation, calling upon the light of the true God, not the demiurge, but the infinite source beyond all worlds. And you do this by visualizing a brilliant white light descending from above your head, from the realm of pleroma, filling your entire body and energy field, dissolving any Archontic attachments, and you speak directly to this light. You say, "I call upon the light of the true source. I am a divine spark of the eternal flame. I reclaim my sovereignty, and I banish all parasitic forces from my presence." And you feel this light expanding outward from your body like a sphere, creating a protected space that the Archons cannot penetrate. The third component is affirmation, where you reprogram your consciousness with the truth of who you are. You repeat internally or aloud, "I am not this body, I am not this world, I am eternal consciousness temporarily inhabiting form. I remember my origin in the pleroma. I reject the authority of the demiurge and all Archontic powers. I am awake, I am aware, I am free." Sincere seekers who have applied this 3-part technique report extraordinary experiences. There was a woman who had been waking up at 3 a.m. almost every night for 2 years, describing it as crushing dread and anxiety that made no logical sense. Then she found the Gnostic texts, and when she learned about the Archon scan, everything suddenly made sense. The next time she woke up at 3:17 in the morning, she did not panic. Instead, she sat up in bed and spoke out loud. "I recognize the Archon scan. I see you, I know what you are, and I do not consent." She felt a shockwave of energy move through the room. Then she invoked the light exactly as the technique teaches, visualizing it filling her body, expanding as a protective sphere, and she affirmed her true identity as a divine spark. The pressure that had been suffocating her for 2 years lifted instantly, completely, and in its place she felt profound peace, a connection to something vast and loving and true, and she knew she had just reclaimed a piece of her power that had been stolen. After that night, she still occasionally wakes up at 3 a.m., but now she experiences it as an opportunity, a reminder to do her spiritual practice, and the archontic presence that used to feel overwhelming now feels distant, weakened, irrelevant, because she knows the truth, and the truth has set her free. If this knowledge is resonating deeply with you, leave your like on this video right now so the algorithm can bring this teaching to more seekers who desperately need it. The archontic system depends on keeping this knowledge hidden, so every like, every comment, every share is an act of spiritual rebellion against that system. The reason the institutional church destroyed the Gnostic texts is because these scriptures reveal that divinity is not located in external temples or mediated through priests. Divinity is your essential nature, accessible directly through gnosis. The Gospel of Thomas quotes Jesus saying, "The kingdom of God is inside you and all around you," which means salvation is not about believing the right doctrines. Salvation is gnosis, waking up to who you really are, recognizing the archontic deception, reclaiming your divine spark. The Pistis Sophia describes how the Demiurge and the Archons have created multiple layers of false heavens, traps disguised as spiritual advancement, designed to capture souls who die and think they are ascending when in reality they are moving to a different level of the same prison. This is why Jesus taught his disciples the secret names and passwords, the specific invocations needed to pass through the archontic checkpoints after death without being deceived. Let me explain why 3 in the morning is so significant, and how you can use this understanding to accelerate your awakening instead of being victimized. Between 3 and 5 in the morning, your soul is at its loosest connection to the physical body, which is why astral projection happens most easily at this time, and why the veil between dimensions is thinnest. Your divine spark is constantly pulling toward its origin in the pleroma, and the archontic seals work to keep it locked down. At 3 a.m., when your consciousness is suspended between waking and sleeping, the Archons scan you because this is when you are most vulnerable but also most potentially powerful. If they can fill you with fear, they reinforce the bonds that keep your spark imprisoned. But if you use it as an opportunity for spiritual practice, you can loosen those bonds, strengthen your light, accelerate your awakening. This is what the mystics throughout history understood when they practiced the vigil, deliberately staying awake during 3 to 5 in the morning for deep prayer and meditation, because they knew this was when communion with the divine was most accessible. The Cathars, the medieval Gnostic Christians massacred in the Albigensian Crusade, had a practice involving vigils at 3 a.m. where initiates would invoke the light of the true God and renounce the Demiurge. And this practice was so effective at liberating consciousness that the Catholic Church declared it the worst heresy and systematically exterminated every Cathar they could find. But the knowledge survived. And now in this time of mass awakening, this knowledge is resurfacing, finding its way to those who are ready. Here is how you transform the Archon scan into liberation. Starting tonight, if you wake up at 3 a.m., recognize this as a sacred opportunity. Sit up and begin the 3-part technique with full awareness. First, recognition. Speak with conviction. I recognize the Archon scan. I withdraw all consent for any invasion of my consciousness. I am sovereign. Second, invocation. Visualize the brilliant white light of the pleroma descending, flooding your body with radiance, dissolving any darkness, expanding as a sphere of protection, and say, I invoke the true God beyond all gods. I am a divine spark of the infinite flame. Fill me, protect me, awaken me. Third, affirmation. Repeat slowly. I am not this body. I am not this world. I am not subject to the Demiurge or the Archons. I am a divine spark originating from the pleroma. I am waking up. I am remembering. I am becoming free. Do this for 10 to 15 minutes, then set an intention. I have claimed my power. Now I sleep in peace, protected by the light I have invoked. Now let me give you even more specific guidance on how to make this practice as powerful as possible. Because the details matter, the intention behind each word matters. The energy you bring to this sacred moment matters more than you might realize. When you do the recognition phase, do not just say the words mechanically. Feel them. Let them arise from the deepest place in your being, from the divine spark itself that is crying out for liberation. Imagine that you are speaking not just to the Archons but to every force in the universe, declaring your awareness, your refusal to be manipulated, your claim to sovereignty. The Archons feed on unconsciousness and passivity, so when you become fiercely conscious and actively resistant, you are wielding a power they cannot withstand. In the invocation phase, the visualization is critical. Do not just imagine a vague light, see it with absolute clarity, brilliant white tinged with gold, streaming down from infinite heights above you. And as it enters your crown and fills your body, feel it, feel the warmth, feel the tingling, feel the love and intelligence and absolute purity of this light that comes from the true source beyond all the archontic layers of deception. Some seekers report that when they first do this visualization with real intensity, they actually see flashes of light with their physical eyes closed, or they feel physical sensations like electricity moving through their spine, or they experience a sudden expansion of consciousness where for a moment they perceive themselves from outside their body, seeing their physical form surrounded by this radiant protective sphere. These are not hallucinations, these are glimpses of the energetic reality that underlies the physical. Proof that the technique is working, that you are actually invoking real spiritual forces and creating real protection. In the affirmation phase, speak each statement as if you are teaching your subconscious mind a truth it has forgotten, because that is exactly what you are doing. You are reprogramming the deep layers of consciousness that have been conditioned since birth to believe you are nothing but a body, nothing but a sinful, limited mortal creature subject to the whims of an angry god. The Gnostic affirmations shatter that programming. They remind your deepest self of what it knew before it fell into incarnation, that you are eternal, that you are divine, that you are free. And the more you repeat these truths with feeling and conviction, the more they sink into the subconscious and overwrite the archontic lies that have kept you imprisoned. Seekers who make this a consistent practice report that within days or weeks, the nature of their 3 a.m. wake-ups changes completely. Some stop waking up because the Archons realize they are no longer getting the fear response they feed on. Others continue waking but now experience it as a gentle call to spiritual practice, and they find their meditation during these hours is deeper and more powerful than at any other time. They receive insights and revelations. They feel the presence of benevolent spiritual forces who have been waiting for them to wake up enough to make contact. And most importantly, they notice changes in their waking life. Synchronicities increase, obstacles start resolving, people and opportunities appear that support their spiritual path, and they feel growing inner peace and certainty that they are on the right track. One seeker described to me how after practicing this technique for just 2 weeks, he began receiving downloads of information during his 3 a.m. sessions, entire concepts and understandings about the nature of reality that he had never read anywhere, knowledge that seemed to be coming directly from the pleroma, from the source itself, bypassing all the archontic filters and distortions that normally block divine transmission. He would wake up, do the 3-part practice, and then sit in the silence afterward. And images and insights would flood his consciousness, showing him the structure of the archontic realms, the specific seals that were placed on his energy body at birth, the contracts and agreements his soul had unconsciously made that kept him bound to the reincarnation cycle, and most importantly, how to dissolve these contracts, how to remove these seals, how to prepare his consciousness for the final liberation that the Gnostics called the ascension to the pleroma. He told me that these experiences were more real, more vivid, more transformative than anything he had ever experienced in ordinary waking consciousness, and he came to see his 3 a.m. wake-ups not as a curse but as the greatest gift, because they were the doorway through which his true education was happening, the education that no church or temple or spiritual teacher in the physical world could provide, because they themselves did not have access to the gnosis he was receiving directly. If you are not already subscribed to this channel, subscribe right now, because I am going to be releasing videos that go deeper into the Gnostic teachings, revealing more secrets from the Nag Hammadi texts, from the Pistis Sophia, sharing advanced techniques for spiritual protection, for raising your vibration, for accelerating your gnosis. This channel exists for sincere seekers like you, for people who are ready to go deeper, to confront uncomfortable truths, to reclaim their power. Subscribe now and let us awaken together. The Archons and the Demiurge do not have ultimate power. They only have the power you give them through your ignorance and consent. And the moment you withdraw that consent, the moment you see through their deception, their power begins to collapse. The Gnostic masters taught that the Demiurge is insane, blind, arrogant, and the Archons are parasites that can only survive by feeding on the spiritual energy of imprisoned souls. But you are not imprisoned anymore. You are receiving this gnosis. You are beginning to wake up. And every time you recognize the Archon scan, every time you invoke the true light, every time you affirm your sovereignty, you are striking a blow against the entire system of archontic control. You are weakening their grip not just on yourself but on all of humanity. If this teaching has touched your soul, do 3 things right now. First, like this video. Second, subscribe to this channel. And third, write in the comments, I reclaim my sovereignty, I am a divine spark, I am awake, because when you make that public declaration, you are creating a beacon of light that will guide others still lost in darkness, and you are contributing to the collective awakening that is dismantling the Archontic matrix one liberated soul at a time. You are not alone on this path. You are surrounded by countless seekers who have walked this road before you, and who are walking it with you now, and you are supported by the light of the true God, calling you home to the Pleroma. The Archon scan at 3 in the morning is real, but your divine power is more real. Your light is stronger than their darkness, and when you stand in that truth, when you invoke that light, when you recognize your sovereignty, nothing can stand against you, because you are a spark of the eternal flame, and the eternal flame cannot be extinguished. It can only be remembered and reclaimed and set free to shine with its full glory.